Yu Hyul, a third-rate warrior with no courage to his name, has lived a life built on false rumors and petty altercations. One day, his already pitiful existence takes a turn for the worse when Seolhwa, the woman he promised to marry long ago, reappears as a master martial artist ready to take action. From that moment, his story spirals, and he goes viral as a menace and enemy of the state, even catching the attention of the royal court. But before diving into how he survived such attention, let's rewind to the beginning. Yu Hyul's tale begins in the snowy mountains of no man's land, where he desperately tried, and failed, to protect the things he cherished most. Angry at his weakness, the young Yu Hyul decided to cut ties with Seolhwa, his sweetheart at the time, who was only 10 years old. He promised to return for her once he became the world's greatest martial artist. Helpless, Seolhwa could only watch with tearful eyes as the love of her life faded into the distance. Years have since passed, and the two have lived separate lives, awaiting an eventual reunion. More than a decade later, in the bustling streets of Miram State, a young adventurer sits in a tavern, regaling two men with tales of his recent triumphs against monsters and enemies. The adventurer, Jo Yoon, thanks the Yeonwon Guild members for their hospitality, but when they invite him to join their guild, he politely declines. He explains he has an important oath to keep. The men respect his decision but warn him to be cautious of the dangers lurking in the area, especially in their village, Six Clan Village. Curious, Jo Yoon asks for details. The men reveal the rumor of a monster terrorizing their village. Known as the Two Supernovas, this figure is said to hunt martial artists and carry their corpses in a bloody sack. Before Jo Yoon can respond, a man carrying a bloodied sack enters the tavern, startling everyone. At first, the drunken patrons struggle to identify the stranger. Soon, however, they recognize him as the merciless martial artist killer, Yu Hyul, the chaotic sword demon of the heretic faction. Yu Hyul demands the innkeeper's presence, but the assistant explains that the innkeeper is out of business. Terrified by the bloodied sack, the assistant offers to help Yu Hyul carry it, but Yu Hyul refuses, warning him not to touch his prey. The assistant quickly apologizes and retreats. Meanwhile, whispers fill the tavern as everyone speculates about the chaotic sword demon. Noticing the sack moving, Yu Hyul realizes his prey is still alive. As he prepares to end its suffering, Jo Yoon suddenly thrusts his spear at Yu Hyul, challenging him to a duel. Though the tavern patrons think Jo Yoon has lost his mind, the young adventurer is determined to defeat Yu Hyul and restore balance to the martial world. Yu Hyul, however, bursts into laughter and advises Jo Yoon to reconsider his decision. When Jo Yoon insists on fighting, Yu Hyul attempts to intimidate him into backing down. But Jo Yoon accuses him of making excuses and demands he honor the challenge. Needing time to think, Yu Hyul asks Jo Yoon to wait outside while he prepares for the duel. The two guild members try to dissuade Jo Yoon, warning him that Yu Hyul is a cowardly demon with no equal, willing to use any means to get his way. Unfazed, Jo Yoon thanks them for their concern, but reiterates his oath to become stronger than the strongest. Meanwhile, Yu Hyul slips out of the tavern, considering fleeing the village altogether. He hadn't come to cause trouble, he just wanted to sell his prey. The bloodied sack, it turns out, contains a wild boar he hunted carelessly, and he only forbade the assistant from touching it because the innkeeper cooks excellent meals. Misunderstood by society and burdened by his appearance, Yu Hyul wonders how he ended up in such a mess. As a third-rate warrior with no martial arts talent, all he wants is to live long enough to see Seolhwa again and fulfill his promise. The next morning, a silver-haired, elegantly dressed young woman arrives in Six Clan Village. She stops to observe Jo Yoon, who is still calling out for Yu Hyul to face him in a life-or-death duel. As the crowd gathers, the woman approaches Jo Yoon. Struck by her beauty, Jo Yoon hesitates as she asks if he's serious about challenging the chaotic sword demon. The onlookers recognize the woman as Baek Seolhwa, the Sun and Moon Sword. She is the direct disciple of the previous world's greatest martial artist, who once defeated the strongest of all factions. Known as the Dragon and Phoenix of martial arts, she is considered the opposite of the chaotic sword demon. Jo Yoon, suspecting she is also after Yu Hyul, asks if she's here to capture him. Blushing, Seolhwa confirms his suspicions, revealing that Yu Hyul, her lifelong sweetheart, is nearby. Enchanted by her, Jo Yoon abandons his mission and asks her to join him instead. Meanwhile, Yu Hyul, still hiding, decides to report the illegal duel to the authorities. However, his plans are interrupted when someone enters the tavern. Begging the intruder for more time, Yu Hyul freezes as Seolhwa steps in. She informs him that she's waited years to see him again. Now a master martial artist, she swiftly defeats Jo Yoon, declares she has plenty of money, and proposes to Yu Hyul, asking him to marry her. Moments after Jo Yoon collapses, medics rush to the scene to revive him. As he's taken to a hospital, Seolhwa and Yu Hyul are left alone in the inn, with spectators outside wondering if a clash is about to unfold. There's a tense silence as the two stare each other down. Finally, Yu Hyul breaks the ice, trying to convince Seolhwa that he isn't the chaotic sword demon everyone claims he is. It's all a ploy to buy himself time to escape. Seolhwa, visibly annoyed, glares at him. Yu Hyul dismisses her as an unhinged woman who kicks down doors with a sword. Hoping to evade her wrath, he nonchalantly stands up, bids her farewell, and heads toward the door. But before he gets far, Seolhwa stops him, removes his handguard, places his hand on her soft cheek, and urges him to repeat what he just said, just like he used to in the old days. At that moment, Yu Hyul can't resist her anymore and softly calls her name, Seolhwa, the way he used to long ago. Flashbacks reveal their shared past. 15 years ago, Yu Hyul was sold to Seolhwa, a noblewoman, as a slave. Despite their circumstances, they bonded, and he became her devoted servant. She was 3 years younger than him, and the youngest lady of her household. Yu Hyul confesses to himself that Seolhwa was the sole reason he ventured into the world and aimed to return to Jianghu, his beginning and end. As they sit down for tea, Yu Hyul quietly wonders if Seolhwa is still the same person he fell in love with. Breaking the awkward silence, Seolhwa asks if he plans to drink his tea. When he says yes, she questions why he's acting so strange and formal, despite his promise to stop doing so. Yu Hyul apologizes, addressing her as Lady Seolhwa, but this only angers her further. To appease her, he switches to her favorite nickname, Seola, and expresses how happy he is to see her again. Seolhwa softens, giving him an affectionate look, and says she's happy to see him too. Curious, Yu Hyul asks if she's become a martial artist. Seolhwa proudly confirms, saying she worked hard for the promise. Confused, Yu Hyul asks what she means, and Seolhwa recites the last words he said to her before they were separated as children. She reminds him of their promise and asks him to marry her again. This time, Yu Hyul panics, remembering the promise was incomplete. Seolhwa presses him, asking if he remembers their promise. Before he can respond, she mentions the rumors she heard about him and how they led her to him. Yu Hyul cautiously asks what she's heard, and Seolhwa accuses him of being a womanizer and a jerk. Shocked, Yu Hyul denies spreading such nonsense, insisting he only cares about their promise. But now that she's become a master martial artist, Seolhwa asks him once again to marry her. Yu Hyul hesitates and reveals that he's already been spoken for, referring to his involvement in a rental scam. To resolve the matter, they visit Han Kyung, a cunning merchant who had lent Yu Hyul money in the past. Upon seeing them, Kyung mockingly asks if the chaotic sword demon is there to repay his debt. Seolhwa steps in, acknowledging Yu Hyul's debt but chastising Kyung for using it to manipulate her lover. The confrontation creates an awkward tension in the room. Meanwhile, Yu Hyul reflects on how unfair it is that he's been funding Kyung's expenses under the guise of support, only for her to twist the story to paint him as the villain. Now that Seolhwa is here, thinking of him as her equal, Yu Hyul is terrified. He knows she'll eat him alive if she discovers he's been coasting through life while she worked tirelessly to become a master. Desperate, he silently pleads with Kyung to play along. Kyung catches on and decides to help. She tells Seolhwa they merely borrowed Yu Hyul's esteemed name for a small favor. Internally, however, Kyung wonders if Yu Hyul's earlier desperate look was a cry for help to escape Seolhwa. Seolhwa, not one to waste time, asks the cost of the favor. Kyung throws out an absurdly high number, 100,000 yang, including sponsorship and damages. Yu Hyul breathes a sigh of relief, confident Kyung has his back. Smiling, he promises to return with the amount. To his shock, Seolhwa immediately hands over a bag filled with over 100,000 coins. Yu Hyul nervously asks if she's okay with spending so much, but Seolhwa reassures him, saying her money will soon be his since they're getting married. After paying off the debt, Seolhwa asks Kyung if Yu Hyul is free to go. Sensing Kyung's hesitation, she questions whether the money is enough. Kyung admits it is, but, hugging Yu Hyul, slyly declares their relationship special, even calling him her husband. Yu Hyul panics and tries to shove Kyung away, but she whispers for him to play along if he wants her help. Furious, Seolhwa unleashes her lightning arts and warns Kyung to back off from her man. Moments before chaos erupts, Yu Hyul screams at Seolhwa, urging her to calm down and understand the misunderstanding. However, Seolhwa refuses, continuing to warn Kyung to stay away from her man. Desperate, Yu Hyul steps between them and declares that Kyung is someone important to him. Shocked and heartbroken, Seolhwa apologizes and storms out of the room. Realizing she misinterpreted his words, Yu Hyul tries to explain but fails to stop her. After she leaves, Kyung smirks and urges him to thank her for reading the situation well and helping him end an unwanted engagement. While she admits her method was clumsy, she feels proud of herself for helping him. But as she notices Yu Hyul's sullen expression, she asks if this is truly the outcome he wants. Without a word, Yu Hyul exits the merchant building, his dark aura unnerving the villagers as he walks through the streets. His mind is consumed by the look of disappointment on Seolhwa's face, believing he was cheating on her with Kyung. He recalls their first meeting as a servant and noble's daughter and remembers the vow he made to close the gap between them and stand proudly by her side. After all the effort Seolhwa has put into keeping their promise, there's no way Yoo Hyul can let her down now by marrying her as a failure. Resolving to find her and explain himself, he presses forward. On his way, Yoo Hyul overhears two villagers discussing a pale figure running toward the cliff. Judging by the long hair, they assume it's a young woman and fret over how unstable she looks. Fearing the worst, Yoo Hyul rushes to them and demands to know where they saw her. After getting the information he needs, he sprints toward the cliff, praying Seolhwa isn't about to harm herself over his stupidity. Upon arriving, he searches the area until he spots a silver-haired figure standing at the edge of the cliff, staring blankly into the distance. Panicked, Yoo Hyul rushes forward, wraps his arms around the person, and yells that he'll marry her as long as she doesn't do anything drastic. To his shock, the silver-haired person turns around. It's an old man. Confused, the man asks Yoo Hyul if he's seriously proposing to him. Embarrassed, Yoo Hyul quickly apologizes for the mistake and turns to leave. But before he can go, the old man stops him and asks if he truly believes he's the only one feeling uneasy. When Yoo Hyul doesn't respond, the old man advises him to consider Seolhwa's feelings instead of making selfish assumptions. Never underestimate the contents of her heart, the man warns. It's more special than you think. Struck by the old man's wisdom, Yoo Hyul asks who he is. Instead of answering, the old man tells him to face his problems head-on rather than running away. At that moment, the man's granddaughter arrives, scolding him for wandering off, and asks Yoo Hyul to help escort him back home so he can take his medicine. After helping them, Yoo Hyul heads back to his house, reflecting on the old man's words and Seolhwa's feelings. When he arrives, he's startled to find Seolhwa waiting outside. She explains that she discovered his house earlier when she first arrived in the village. Noticing the tear stains on her face, Yoo Hyul asks if she's been crying. Seolhwa denies it, but Yoo Hyul doesn't buy her lie. Determined to set things straight, Yoo Hyul explains his relationship with Kyung, assuring her there's nothing between them. However, Seolhwa interrupts, admitting she believes in his faithfulness but fears he's avoiding marrying her. Remembering the old man's advice, Yoo Hyul decides to be honest. He confesses that he can't marry her yet. Before Seolhwa can leave in disappointment, he grabs her hand and explains his situation, his reliance on the trading company's support, his shabby rented home, and the fact that all the exaggerated rumors about him are untrue. He isn't the extraordinary figure people believe him to be. Though he hasn't yet fulfilled their promise, he vows to work hard and become the man she deserves. He asks her to wait a little longer so he can propose properly and build a future worthy of her. Moved by his sincerity, Seolhwa embraces him tightly and agrees to wait until he's ready for marriage. But moments later, she playfully pushes him against the wall, leans in close, and whispers how special it will be to get married in front of their children. Yoo Hyul tries to object, but Seolhwa's slender leg presses against him, sending his body into overdrive. Nearby, the villagers hear Yoo Hyul's desperate screams, begging Seolhwa to take things slow. Misinterpreting the sounds, rumors spread that the Chaos Sword Demon is battling and overpowering the Star of the Sun and Moon Sword. As gossip swirls, an unidentified martial artist holding a long scroll discusses the rumors with her partner. Though dismissive of the details, one thing is clear. The Chaos Sword Demon defeated the Sun and Moon Sword. Intrigued, the fighter declares her intent to challenge the last star standing in her way and claim the title of the greatest prodigy of their generation. If successful, she vows the title of greatest under heaven will belong to the Sancheon Tang clan. The following day, Seolhwa wakes up early, blushing all over from a night she'll never forget. Sitting on the balcony, untangling her hair and smiling at nothing in particular, her peaceful morning is interrupted by an unexpected visitor at the house's entrance. The man, clearly angry, starts shouting and demanding that the so-called Chaos Sword Demon, Yoo Hyul, come out and settle their differences like men. As the man continues yelling and listing Yoo Hyul's supposed transgressions, an irritated Seolhwa appears behind him, pressing her sword against his throat. Calmly, she asks if it's his death anniversary, offering to speed up the process. Panicked, the middle-aged man raises his hands and begs her to wait, insisting that she introduce herself first. Seolhwa declares herself the lady of the house, and the man, now pale and trembling, identifies himself as the landlord. All his bluster about settling things like men turns out to be a ruse to get Yoo Hyul to come out and pay his overdue rent, as the day marks rent collection. Rolling her eyes, Seolhwa wakes Yoo Hyul and leaves him to handle the landlord while she prepares breakfast. When Yoo Hyul joins the landlord, he apologizes for the dramatic morning, but the man angrily complains about Seolhwa's earlier attempt on his life. Brushing past that, he grumbles about the mess Yoo Hyul left at the inn while he was away, and, more importantly, questions the bloody boar carcass lying nearby. When Yu Hyol casually offers the boar as rent payment, the landlord's temper flares, and he pins Yu Hyol against the wall, ready to strike. Just then, Seolhwa reappears holding a butcher's knife and wearing her signature death stare. Her presence instantly restores order. Calmed down but still curious, the landlord asks about the crazy swordswoman calling herself the lady of the house. Adding his personal observation, he remarks that she's hot as hell. Yu Hyol, unimpressed, reminds the landlord of his promise to stay loyal to his old lady from back in the day. When the landlord realizes Seolhwa's true identity as Baek Seolhwa, the sun and moon sword, he's left speechless. Switching gears, the landlord brings up a rumor spreading across the nearby villages. While he initially dismissed it as nonsense, recent events have made him second guess. When Yu Hyol asks for details, the landlord explains that people are claiming the Chaos Sword Demon hypnotized the sun and moon sword. Infuriated by the absurdity, Yu Hyol does his best to assure the landlord the rumors are false. As the conversation continues, Seolhwa brings out a neatly prepared breakfast and proceeds to spoon-feed Yu Hyol in front of the landlord. The cringeworthy scene nearly causes the landlord to choke as Seolhwa sweetly asks Yu Hyol if the food tastes good. Once he recovers, the landlord warns Yu Hyol that all eyes are now on them, and the union of the two stars is the talk of the town. Seolhwa firmly declares her unwavering love for Yu Hyol, promising to stand by him through thick and thin. This heartfelt declaration motivates Yu Hyol to work harder, be determined to get a proper home for them in the future, and propose to Seolhwa with pride. Tired of witnessing their lovey-dovey antics, the landlord wraps up the discussion by demanding this month's rent. Later that evening, Yu Hyol and Seolhwa return home after reclaiming their 100,000 nyang from Kyung following the events of the previous day. When the landlord sees the cash, he's overwhelmed and urges Yu Hyol to buy the house outright. However, Yu Hyol declines, explaining that he's saving up to buy a better place. Although the money technically came from Seolhwa, she insists it's now their money, not just hers. Smitten by her sentiment, Yu Hyol agrees to the landlord's terms and promises to pay rent on time while keeping the house Murim-free. Just as things seem to settle, disaster strikes. The house Yu Hyol vowed to protect suddenly bursts into flames. Both he and the landlord stare in disbelief as the fiery chaos unfolds before them. What the freak just happened? Yu Hyol mutters, stunned. As villagers gather to watch the inferno, a figure leaps dramatically from the roof of the burning house. Upon landing, the woman introduces herself as Tang Hai, the Poison Phoenix and heir to the Sanchin Tang clan. With a sinister smile, she declares her intent to assassinate the Chaos Sword Demon, Yu Hyol. While Tang Hai continues boasting about her mission, Seolhwa interrupts with a swift martial arts attack, startling her. Calm but deadly, Seolhwa warns Tang Hai that she doesn't care who she claims to be, but if she values her life, she'd better explain her intentions quickly. Tang Hai, unfazed, smiles and formally greets the sun and moon sword. Ready for battle, she takes her stance, signaling the start of a duel. Moments before the battle begins, Tang Hai confirms the rumors about the two stars of the world and then prepares to unveil her ultimate poison technique. Just as she's about to strike and destroy the sun and moon sword, Seolhwa shocks everyone by ending the fight in an instant, burying 3/4 of Tang Hai's body into the ground. With the fire extinguished, Yu Hyol demands an explanation for why she burned down his house. Instead of answering, Tang Hye first commends his tenacity in forcing her this far, causing Yu Hyol to question if she's completely unhinged. After some nonsensical rambling, Tang Hai calls out her hidden trump card. Without delay, Tang Zhou, the silent killer of the Sancheon Tang clan, emerges from the shadows, only to be immediately slammed into the ground alongside her master by Seolhwa. Satisfied that no more surprises are coming, Yu Hyol repeats his question. Tang Hye lies, claiming she was merely there to punish the wicked unorthodox sect, Yu Hyol, and rescue her fellow righteous ally, Seolhwa. She insists that using fire was just a basic tactical strategy, downplaying the crime entirely. Annoyed by her dismissive attitude, the landlord yells at her, demanding compensation for his house. Ignoring the landlord, Tang Hai accuses Yu Hyol of taking Seolhwa's parents hostage and hypnotizing her into submission. She even suggests the fire was divine retribution for his past atrocities. Yu Hyol, exasperated by her absurdity, points out the irony in her earlier attempt to kill Seolhwa while claiming to want to save her. Flustered, Tang Hai lies again, saying she was caught up in the heat of battle. At that moment, her partner, Tang Leo, spills the truth. Tang Hai's real target has always been Seolhwa. Confused, Yu Hyol asks why Tang Hye, someone from the Orthodox sect, would go after Seolhwa, also of the Orthodox sect. Tang Leo then reveals Tang Hye's most embarrassing secret. Her grudge against Seolhwa began 2 years ago when Seolhwa humiliated her in the Murim tournament by beating her soundly. Ever since, Tang Hai has been desperate to avenge her loss. only to realize that confronting Seolhwa head-on is far more challenging than expected. Now, after failing to defeat Seolhwa, Tang Hae declares her intent to regain her honor by taking Yoo Hyeol's head and saving Seolhwa. Unimpressed, Yoo Hyeol asks Seolhwa if she even knows Tang Hae. When Seolhwa replies that she doesn't, Tang Hae loses her temper and rants about Seolhwa's arrogance toward everyone except Yoo Hyeol. Frustrated, she signals Tang Leo to end things quickly. With her master's permission, Tang Leo frees herself from the ground, dashes past Yoo Hyeol with a disdainful side-eye, and disappears. Moments later, she returns with a hostage, whom Tang Hae proudly introduces as her final trump card. Amidst the confusion, Tang Hae offers Yoo Hyeol a chance to surrender before something terrible happens. Bewildered, Yoo Hyeol demands to know who she's taken hostage. Tang Hae indignantly calls him ungrateful for not recognizing his mother. This leaves Yoo Hyeol even more confused, as he explains that his biological mother died when he was 5. The captive woman, clearly flustered, shouts that her son's name is Yoo Hyun, not Yoo Hyeol. The villagers quickly recognize her as entirely unrelated to Yoo Hyeol, and she sheepishly asks the innkeeper for help out of this embarrassing situation. Realizing her mistake, Tang Hae throws a tantrum and accuses Seolhwa of lowering herself by siding with an unorthodox punk like Yoo Hyeol. Through tears, she insists that the captive must be Yoo Hyeol's mother and threatens to stab the woman if Yoo Hyeol doesn't surrender. To her surprise, the hostage starts tearfully calling Yoo Hyeol her son and begs him to comply. Frustrated, Yoo Hyeol tries to calm everyone down, only for Tang Hae to accuse him of abandoning his only mother. The clueless villagers, overhearing the commotion, mistakenly believe the woman is truly Yoo Hyeol's mother. They begin gossiping, calling Yoo Hyeol a heartless demon for not caring about his parents. Despite Yoo Hyeol's attempts to explain, the rumors spread like wildfire. Furious, Yoo Hyeol calls Tang Hae a weird little brat with strange hair and mocks her for pretending to be from a prestigious clan while spouting nonsense. His insults hit a nerve, leaving Tang Hae visibly shaken. Desperate to salvage her pride, she uproots herself from the ground, declares Yoo Hyeol a scrawny brat, and hurls poison darts at him. Seolhwa effortlessly blocks the darts and challenges Tang Hae. Smirking, Tang Hae commends Seolhwa's reflexes, but points out she missed one dart. Before Seolhwa can react, the dart strikes Yoo Hyeol, knocking him out instantly. Almost immediately, Seolhwa starts regretting her sluggish reactions to Tang Hae's attacks, as she calls Hyeol's name several times to confirm he's okay. Just as she's about to give up hope, Yoo Hyeol opens his eyes and assures her that he's a-okay. Seolhwa hugs him so tightly that even Hyeol starts feeling guilty for worrying her unnecessarily. Soon after, the landlord asks Hyeol if he's truly fine, as he seems pretty down earlier, but then Hyeol says it's just a needle prick after all, so there's no real damage done. Just then, the crazy dwarf Bayach screams at the top of her lungs and assures Hyeol that he's as good as dead already, since she already infused the needle with the Sancheon clan's ultimate poison, 100 fragrance root acid. In any moment from now, the poison will spread through his body and reach his Dantian spots. Once that happens, the poison will infect the Dantian and multiply itself through Hyeol's internal energy reserves, causing supreme agony and death. In other words, the more internal energy Hyeol has, the more deadly the poison is. After rambling on for several seconds about how the poison kills masters, Tang Hae waits for Hyeol to cry out in agony. However, after a brief pause, nothing happens as Hyeol still only feels a slight sting. Soon, she starts doubting herself when she finds Seolhwa and Hyeol chatting about treating his needle wound. When she's finally had enough, she checks out the poison vial to see if she truly brought the right poison for the mission, seeing as Hyeol still seems very fine. As soon as reality dawns on her, she pricks herself with one of her poison-tipped needles to see if she's just tripping. Shortly afterward, the poison takes effect in her body and she collapses, confusing both Hyeol and Seolhwa in the process. Hours later, Tang Hae finally comes to and finds herself in a weird house wearing a weird dress. Seconds after waking up, she throws a tantrum and asks Hyeol, who's near her, to tell her where she is. Hyeol tells her they brought her to the village doctor's place when they found her writhing in severe pain from the poison she infused into her body. Now that she's back on her feet, Hyeol asks if she still wants to kill him or not. At that point, Tang Hae realizes that the poison is real, but then again, since the only way to counter the effects is to achieve extreme control of one's internal energy perfectly, it must mean Hyeol has reached the advanced level technique requiring internal energy rivaling a sect leader's. To keep the convo going, she asks Hyeol why he saved her, and Hyeol says that although Seolhwa was furious at him for doing that, he only did it because they had some scores to settle. By then, Hae realizes that she might have misunderstood the entire situation, seeing as the mighty sun and moon sword fell to him in a duel to the death. Upon realizing that Hyeol might be a righteous doofus after all, she concludes he must be trying to drive her out before she ends up like him. With all that, Tang Hai decides to apologize to Seolhwa for thinking she was being brainwashed or kept hostage as the stupid rumors said. Although shocked by her response, Hyul still moves on to ask about her family's involvement in this charade of hers. To avoid putting her family name to shame, Tang Hai assures him she's acting alone and will take full responsibility for her stupidity. Hyul asks to make sure she can handle the consequences alone, and Tang Hai warns him not to underestimate her. With that, Hyul asks if she understands that she'd have to pay back 100,000 yang. And while both parties label the money differently, Tang Hye agrees to do the needful. Once they get to an agreement, Hyul proceeds to collect his money in person just like she wanted. To do this, Hyul takes Tang Hai to the Pengwol Inn and makes her start work there as an attendant. After doing the hardest work of her life in just 5 minutes, Tang Hai confronts Hyul and asks him why she's doing such back-wrenching work. Well, Hyul says she needed help, so this is what he could come up with. With Seolhwa in his arms, Hyul menacingly asks if she'd want to do something else. But then again, Tang Hai knows her place immediately and continues working. Soon after taking care of that, Hyul politely asks Seolhwa to get off him since he's fine now, but then Seolhwa refuses to do so since she doesn't know what Tang Hye might do next. Hyul assures her that Tang Hye is working to pay for her mistakes, so they shouldn't be worried about her. Seolhwa then promises to handle matters her way next time so he doesn't get hurt. After seeing how uncomfortable Hyul looked, Seolhwa asks if he feels that awkward with her on his lap like that. To avoid incurring her wrath, Hyul holds his wife tightly and snuggles her in the cutest way possible to give the other customers a cringy show to watch. After the show, the duo wonders where Tang Hai's partner Geo ran off. At that instant, Geo's seen on the streets complaining about how stressful it is to wear a mask to cover her real face. After acknowledging Seolhwa's power, she removes the mask, reveals her beautiful face, and promises to see her rival, Yoo Hyul, on her next visit to the Six-Clan village. Given how much Gyeonghu, the city where he grew up, has taken from him, Yoo Hyul resolves to become stronger so he can stop failing to protect what's precious to him. To achieve this, he trains under Seolhwa's supervision during the day and seeks her feedback at the end of each session. During one such session, Yoo Hyul removes his shirt, exposing his abs, which leaves Seolhwa struggling not to stare at his well-defined physique. After finishing his training for the day, he asks Seolhwa for her thoughts on his regimen. However, before she responds, Hyul reflects on the last time he asked for her opinion on his strength. Even if she tried to be kind, he knew he was pathetic, incapable of even basic skills like proper breath control. Bracing for criticism, Hyul is taken aback when Seolhwa compliments his well-trained external energy, his muscles. After a brief, affectionate moment, she shifts to discussing his internal energy. To avoid revealing his terrible state, Hyul claims he plans to focus on that separately in the future. Back at the inn, Seolhwa promises to help her boyfriend circulate his QE and improve his internal energy as a true energy master. She is unaware, however, that Hyul has no internal energy to begin with. Despite admitting she's never done true energy training with someone else, Seolhwa urges Hyul to align his dantians with hers to give it a try. Encouraged, Hyul hopes to gain some internal energy through this process. However, when he considers the locations of her upper, middle, and lower dantians, her face, chest, and pelvis, he concludes that Gyeonghu is truly a place where survival of the fittest rules. As they begin the ritual, Tang Hye, the unpredictable newcomer, bursts into the room, blowing the door off its hinges and yelling at the duo for attempting true energy training without her. When she sees their awkward position, she jumps to conclusions, accusing them of undressing for some other purpose. Moments later, the innkeeper, who is also the landlord, arrives looking for Tang Hai. Spotting the destroyed door and disheveled room, he scolds Seolhwa and Hyul, calling them ungrateful brats for ruining the place he kindly rented to them. Annoyed by the chaos, Hyul, who feels he should be the one angry, grows increasingly frustrated. Amidst the commotion, Kyung, the merchant leader, arrives and calms the situation. She then informs Hyul about trouble brewing at his home. Initially suspicious, Seolhwa questions whether Kyung is there to cause more problems. But Kyung presents an enticing proposal, a chance to earn urgent funds to find a new place to stay. Accepting her offer, Hyul, Seolhwa, Tang Hye, and Kyung travel through the mountainside toward their new point of interest. Along the way, their caravan is ambushed by bandits, who order the riders to halt and surrender their belongings. While the bandits intimidate the riders, one ventures to the back of the carriage and opens the door, only to find Hyul, Kyung, Seolhwa, and Tang Hye staring him down. Startled, the bandit has his ponytail cut off and flees, terrified. Shortly after, the group captures the remaining bandits and ties them up. Once the captives are secured, Kyung explains that the real threat is a group of Green Forest bandits entrenched nearby. As a branch of the Green Forest main headquarters, they've become skilled martial artists and pose a significant danger. Though they avoid drawing the government's attention, they've grown increasingly violent, attacking travelers along this path. Kyung reveals she hired Seolhwa and Hyul to protect the caravan because it carries valuable cargo. Hyul, who accepted the job for the pay, remains puzzled about Tang Hai's presence. Tang Hai defends herself, insisting she can't stand by while innocent people suffer at the hands of villains. She declares she'll assist for a sum of 100,000 nyang. Annoyed, Hyul questions her logic, sparking an argument. Their bickering is cut short when the rider signals the caravan to prepare for an impending attack by the Green Forest bandits. Determined to prove her worth, Tang Hai steps outside, ready to face the bandits alone. Spotting her exit, the bandits assume she's the strongest warrior among the group. Despite her initial bravado, Tang Hai becomes visibly nervous upon seeing their strength, but loudly declares they shouldn't expect mercy from her. Moments later, Seolhwa emerges and tells Hyul to stay put while she takes care of the bandits in seconds. Tang Hai protests, claiming the bandits as her prey, but Hyul urges her to stop distracting Seolhwa. Frustrated, Tang Hai arms herself with explosive darts and fires them recklessly at the bandits. Her impulsive attack destroys the cliff they're standing on, causing Seolhwa to punish her by striking her head with the flat of her sword. Seconds later, the crumbling cliff collapses and causes a landslide which sends everyone, Kyung's group, the Green Forest bandits, and their party, tumbling down into the valley below. Meanwhile, the Green Forest bandit chief receives word from a subordinate about Kyung's caravan being protected by formidable guards. Though concerned about the guard's strength, the chief dismisses the worry, explaining that he only sent the vanguard to assess the enemy. Confident reinforcements from the Green Forest main base will soon arrive. He believes the situation is under control. However, his mood changes when he hears the vanguard has been wiped out. Before he can commend Kyung's guards, he's informed that both the guards and the target were wiped out as well. In the aftermath of the chaos, Hyul awakens to find himself awkwardly sprawled over Kyung's slender, wet body, with Seolhwa nowhere in sight.